Oh, boy. Wanted to go to bed at halftime.
Apologies to the guy that wanted to watch paint dry. You won. You were right. That was not a fun Super Bowl.
Oh, still better than watching paint dry.
Only
I'll
slightly.
argue that one all day.
Slightly.
All depends how you're doing it.
How you're watching the paint dry?
Or the game.
Maybe do appetizers while you watch that paint dry.
Yeah, I guess you could do that.
But that game was, the DeJean pick six really flipped it. We'd seen Mahomes come back down 10 in a couple big playoff games and Super Bowls. 17-24. It was 34-0 at one point. This is one of the worst Super Bowls in terms of competitiveness we've ever seen.
You're 100% correct. But it was still football, and it was not that exciting.
No.
It really wasn't. And whether it was the lead up to the game, the build up, you finally you were able to muster some excitement to watch the game, and you got over the whole Lions hangover, and then you watched it, and that's what you saw. I mean, it was an early checkout for a lot of people.
Before the game even started, they did they ran out of the tunnel, and they go, "Whoa, this is a pretty big Philly crowd, pro Philadelphia crowd," and I'm thinking, I'm gonna go check what prices were for this game. And right before kickoff, you could get tickets for under $2,000 a piece. Now, keep in mind, when the Lions were in the thick of it, we were telling people, hey, if you can get them for $5,000 or $6,000, you might be getting a good deal. It made me realize, and it was just one of those, painful reminders, that would have been a home game for the Lions. This fan base that traveled, knowing that Chiefs fans weren't buying up tickets, that would have been like an 80-20, 90-10 Honolulu Blue party in the Big Easy. And I know they didn't earn their way there. It's just, it hits you when you see it on TV in front of you.
Yeah, and I was a little bit surprised, not just at I guess I wasn't surprised about the fan base, because year after year, if you're going to be in the Super Bowl, it does get expensive. And they've been in the Super Bowl a lot. Thankfully for their fans, they've hosted most playoff games. But I was a little bit surprised at the lack of emotions the Chiefs took the field with. I think that was my biggest shock. Was I don't know if they felt like, hey, we've got Patrick Mahomes, we're just going to roll the ball out, or are we going to learn down the road, and maybe in a month, maybe 6 months, maybe a couple of years, that there was something else going on behind the scenes. It just felt like they weren't 100% invested. And I'm not going to sit here and say there's any conspiracy. I have no idea. I'm not going to throw any darts. It just felt like they were not invested in that game.
But they've started slowing all these Super Bowls.
Yeah,
so I don't know if it's
10-point dogs and they've come back to win.
Yeah. The problem is they just couldn't protect. Well, and I don't think Mahomes is very good even within the confines of the pressure. He didn't step up. He made a couple terrible throws for interceptions. And Philly didn't blitz a single time in the game.
Well, and I'll even go back to Chris Fullard dissing the offensive line by not including Trevor Keegan. But the two Super Bowl losses that Patrick Mahomes has had, what has been the common denominator?
Yep.
Offensive line play. What did I say on Friday? I didn't think this offensive line could hold up, and they certainly did not. It was, the back-to-back sacks. Like at first, in the first quarter when that happened, I thought, is this really happening? Like, I thought it was going to be advantage Philly, but not to that extent.
How about this, too? You come out of half, and Hopkins drops the ball before halftime, maybe gets him in field goal range. But you have halftime to go, okay, we're down 24-0. We still have Mahomes, got 15. Let's. John, you've been in the locker room for halftime, and you try to tighten some things up. Mahomes got sacked twice on the opening drive out of the half. You go, what did you guys talk about?
Yeah.
There's no answer is what that meant.
Well, it was simply mano a mano. That's exactly what it was. That was, our badasses are better than the guys that you think are badasses, and we're going to go one-on-one. We're not going to blitz. It's all about, how many times have I mentioned the matchups? And whether it's when Hutch was healthy, the matchup that he had with the offensive tackles, Aleem McNeil, the matchup that he has had with guards or centers. It really comes to, football is a game of matchups. And if you win those matchups, you're going to win the game. And sometimes it's matchups, hey, offensive line, including the tight ends and running backs versus the front seven. This was simply 5-on-4, and the 4 that Philly had up front defeated the 5 that Kansas City had up front. That was the deciding factor of the game.
Snowballed quickly, got out of hand quickly, and Yeah, I mean, if you fell asleep early, you didn't miss anything. I mean, yeah, the Chiefs scored a couple late touchdowns to make it. It doesn't even look close, even though they scored those touchdowns. It was all in vain. We are going to react and overreact to some of the storylines coming up at 7:02, including Mahomes and the GOAT conversation. We'll talk halftime show during the show today because, well, it was polarizing. Some people really liked it. Some people didn't like it at all. One member of the show thinks the commercials were the best they've been in years. We'll get to that coming up at 6:18. John, the game itself, Jalen Hurts wins. Although Heather doesn't know who it is on the show.
Yeah, she's pointing fingers.
Who liked those commercials? That's the look That's the look you just gave us. Spoiler, it's not Heather. Someone else on the show really liked the commercials. John, what did you make of Jalen Hurts in that game? Because without Saquon Barkley running the ball, I thought he had one of those coming out parties.
Jalen Hurts, certainly he did. His composure in the game. Now, and here's where I thought Jalen Hurts really grew up. They come out and they punt on the first possession. Okay, they trade punts. Jalen Hurts orchestrates a 7-play, 69-yard drive. Defense forces another punt. They get the ball back, and it's 11 plays, 50 yards. You think, hey, they're going in to score. It's going to be 14-0, and this is the coming out party for the Eagles. Ended up being that way. But the interception that he threw under pressure, and I thought, oh, here we go. Yep. Jalen Hurts. Then they came back. It was 7 plays, and it wasn't nothing magical, but he didn't make the mistake again. He didn't have that moment of panic where he thought, I'm going to have to do more than I'm expected to do. He just went out there, made the plays that were there to be made. And he made some adjustments at the line of scrimmage by throwing the ball to A.J. Brown different times. I just thought it was – I'm curious as to A.J. Brown and Nick Sirianni. Did you see him coming off the field at one time right before? Oh, yeah, he was yelling at I think it might have even been on the – wasn't the interception. It was in the first half. Anyway, he was coming off and he was jawing at Nick Sirianni about something about, give me the ball. And then, it was the possession before he scored his touchdown. So, but I really felt like Jalen Hurts, he was obviously MVP. He was the reason that they won that game offensively because he could have gone in the tank. That was a moment where, oh no, the Chiefs defense, the Spagnuolo could have turned up the heat, the fire, and forced more turnovers, but Jalen Hurts didn't allow that to happen.
Yeah, that was a critical juncture because they finally got pressure when he threw that pick.
Yeah.
It was interior pressure, nothing really a quarterback can do, but you got to eat it or throw it away, and instead he put it in harm's way. And instead of spiraling, he settled in, finished with 3 touchdowns, almost 300 yards.
He was the best quarterback on the field.
And you could argue he may have been better than Mahomes the first time they played. They went toe-to-toe, and Mahomes just got the ball last. Hurts has played well in both Super Bowls, and as he said after the game, you can't rewrite history, but you can even the score.